It is now up to Congress to decide what happens next with a 400-page Mueller report, which lays out how Russia interfered in our 2016 presidential election. And today, the Democrats issued a subpoena to get the full unredacted report.
Over 22 months, a special counsel, Robert Mueller, interviewed 500 people, except the one he wouldn't subpoena, President Trump. And Democrats plan to find out why and much more by asking Mueller to testify before Congress. Joining us with a closer legal look at the report, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Ambrosio Rodriguez. Welcome back.
Good morning,
sir. This idea of interviewing President Trump, Robert Mueller did issue questions to him in writing. He responded to those in writing. He never did have a face-to-face conversation with President Trump. Is that a mistake?
You know, I am not qualified to doubt someone like Mueller. I mean, his accomplishments and his stature in the legal community are beyond reproach. He stated that the reason he didn't do that was because of kind of the ongoing trauma that it would cause the country, right? It's already been 22 months. I'm sure he's well aware that we have an election in, 15 months. And the process of subpoenaing the president, going to the Supreme Court, and kind of the fight that it would ensue would be another 6-8 months. And I think maybe he just thought that his investigation was complete enough and people would have to draw their own conclusions. So,
in President Trump's written responses to the special counsel, there are 37 instances in which the president said he didn't remember certain interactions or events with Russians, and then refused to respond to questions about obstruction. Did Mueller crack a door for Congress to subpoena the president, do you think?
No, because the Congress can't subpoena the president because they're equal branches of the government, right? So they don't have that authority over the president. They can subpoena people around him and begin hearings, right? I think one of the first things that's going to happen is Mueller is going to be brought to Congress to testify in front of the House of Representatives. But Mueller stopped being able to get any more information or any direct answers from Trump. And I think one of the things that kind of the takeaway from this report, right, because there were two parts. There's the Russia part and there's obstruction of justice. And I think one of the points I wanted to make was how important obstruction of justice is in a democracy, in the sense that a democracy relies on transparency and a process. And the crime of obstruction of justice is basically saying the President of the United States tried to stop an investigation by threatening to fire people, trying to get people fired, dangling pardons. These are big deals. And I think as kind of the weekend goes by and the week goes by and we have more time to process 484 pages, I think things are going to set in as to what happened.
I was just wondering, as a lawyer, as you were reading page after page about this idea of obstruction and legal theories sort of being floated in the context of this report, did you find that if you were a prosecutor, you would have moved forward with an obstruction, or you would have left it the way it was, because it seemed unresolved, and given A.G. Barr's memo that he had written months before becoming the Attorney General, essentially saying that the president cannot be prosecuted for obstruction, did that factor in?
Yeah, I think, the Mueller report started with the kind of the foundation that the Department of Justice back in the early 70s says that a sitting president cannot be indicted, right? And he made that very clear. So the argument that, well, he wasn't indicted, therefore he was cleared, is a false argument, because it begins with indictment is impossible. I think that there's clear evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the president tried to impede this investigation by going forward, and that's a crime. I think that is proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and it's a chargeable crime. And whether he can be charged for it after he's no longer president, whether that's 2020, when is the election, 2020 or 2024, that's up to, what happens in the process later. I think that, going back to the question of obstruction of justice, the great irony in all this is when this began, there were a lot of commentaries, I'm sure he got a lot of advice, to just let the process happen, right? We've had this before. Reagan, Clinton, I mean, we've had just about every president investigated or have some kind of special counsel. And what they traditionally did was not talk about it, let the process, play out, let the lawyers do their jobs. The Russia thing really didn't amount to much of anything other than, look, these things were inappropriate. There was kind of this footsie going on. If President Trump had listened to his advisors and stayed out of the process, the Mueller report would have only been about 180 pages, right? And, there's conventional wisdom is conventional wisdom for a reason, which is if you are the sitting president, you're being investigated, stay out of it, because the cover-up is worse than the actual allegation.
The report singles out at least 10 instances of staffers refusing to carry out President Trump's orders. The most startling one, former White House counsel Don McGahn, who repeatedly refused requests to ask the Justice Department to fire Mueller, and then, asking them to lie to the press about it. There's the discussion about unlawful versus unethical, and where does something like this fall?
Unlawful because it goes to the issue of trying to impede an ongoing investigation, right? The obstruction of justice is the crime of when a person is being investigated. Let's say I own a bank and I was laundering money and I'm being investigated for that, and I tell my subordinates to do certain things in order to impede that investigation from going forward, to hide evidence, to destroy evidence. Now, that's obstruction. Imagine if you're the President of the United States and you are in charge of the Department of Justice. These people are your subordinates, right? And you work for the American people, and you're using that power and that authority in order to stop an investigation against you. That's obstruction of justice.
All right. Once again, Ambrosio Rodriguez, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. You can check out his website and follow him on Twitter. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.